It's 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started with Kaysville Planning Commission. I want to welcome everybody here. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for May 10th, 2018.
I'll make a motion that we approve minutes from our meeting on May 10th, 2018.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. We will have a public hearing, but would you like to go ahead and introduce it?
Okay, yeah, I'll give a quick introduction to this. So the item before you is, again, our favorite corner of the city lately on the southwest side of town. We've got a request for a rezone near the end of the cul-de-sac off of Blooming Grove Circle. And the property also fronts Shepherd Lane. And the property, it's just over an acre. It's actually currently part of the A5. It's the heavy agricultural zoning over that portion of the property. You can see surrounding in your packet there on the map, you've got the R120 zone to the north and to the east. Those are just shy of a true half-acre, 20,000 square foot lot type development. And so the applicant, I'll probably explain further, they are here this evening, their intentions for the property, but is requesting also the R120 as is surrounding it with the intention of being able to build a home on it, hopefully at some point. So under the existing zoning, you pretty much can't do anything. If A5 is essentially 5-acre lot size minimum. So to subdivide something like that off is just essentially not possible. And so they're looking to do something similar to surrounding areas. Again, as a rezone action, it is a legislative decision. So we're looking for a recommendation this evening from the Planning Commission to pass along to the City Council. And you get a lot of discretion with this. So again, we're looking at how it fits in with a specific neighborhood. Is it compatible? Is it something that is desirable? And is it, in your opinion, conform with the general plan and kind of the vision set out with that for the city? So in that, and pass it back to the Planning Commission, and happy to take questions here as staff. And again, the applicant is here as well. It is a public hearing, so if we open it at that time, we'll take those comments as well.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and put it up for discussion.
Do you guys want to come up? Because I'm sure we'll probably have some questions for you on that. I guess my first question is, there's something in the water down there in Blooming Grove Circle? This is like the sixth thing that's come up before us over the past month, man. It's crazy.
It might be.
Maybe, eh?
So
who's the owners of the property then?
We are. It's actually under our trust. It's the Brewer Trust.
Okay.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Barry Brewer. This is my wife, Kathy Kay.
Gotcha.
And our neighbors, Jackie and Rick Jones.
Gotcha. Where do you folks live?
If you want me to
Absolutely, that'd be fabulous.
Okay. So this is Shepherd. And it
Yeah.
transitions on to Sunset.
Yep.
Our home is here.
Okay.
Inside this black iron fence.
Okay. Okay.
And this, the creek runs, this is Bear Creek. It runs here.
Yep.
And right through here, and then under Shepherd here. So when we first applied for a permit.
Can I pull you over here, Barry, and I'll let you use the pointer so that we can hear you on the mic? Just get you on the record on the recording. Appreciate it. Just there, right there.
So when we first applied for a building permit in 2009, I don't know if you were around, but this property was pretty dilapidated. Leland Myers was the director of the sewer district at that time, and one of the things he mentioned to us is there was a lot of growth right along here. It was pretty high growth, and it was causing, it was impeding vision both ways on traffic here. So there were some accidents here that were occurring as a result of. So he asked us to take all that down and grub this out, and so that sort of started a campaign where we wanted to beautify this property, and this is part of what we're requesting is part of this beautification campaign that we've embarked on.
And then your ultimate goal then is to build a home there?
Yeah, actually, Rick and Jackie have a great idea on this parcel here. There's ingress, egress here and here.
Uh-huh.
And one of the issues that we think is currently a problem is the neighbors that live to the east of the creek here. Their backyards come right into this space here, and I don't know if you're all familiar, but this was the old road.
Right.
Yeah, and so some of those neighbors find it very convenient to just dump stuff down their hill, because this is a slight grade up to their parcels or their backyards up here, and there's just been a dumping ground here basically, and so again, we just think there's a better use for this property, and that's why we're coming before you with this request.
Is the hill actually part of the property?
The
grade?
property line almost drops directly under these power lines. So in some places, the property line is on the hill slightly, just slightly. We had it surveyed, and that's what we found when the surveyors were done and they put in stakes along here. It was just almost directly below this power line.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any
Any other
other
questions
questions? Is that the idea that you had, what he just presented?
Yeah, in fact, do you mind if I come up? Okay, go with the, like, Andy, could you go? Oh, just kind of push it forward. Okay. You gotta be like, oh, there we go. Okay. Could you go all the way back for me? Sorry. Okay, just to the part where we start the plat.
We might have them out of order, so that white and black.
Yeah. Okay, so right where you see the 506 right there is the property line. There is enough right there that there is a hill there, and there is. Oh, I'm sorry. We walked it and we measured it out. This is right where the blue line is where the water runs. But there is just enough there. There's 36 feet across to hit all the easements. And then there's 65 feet long there. And then enter off of the cul-de-sac behind for the back garage. Does that make sense? Because a lot of people think, well, there's not a lot of space there. But actually, because the trees encroach on that, it's hard to tell where that is. And so we went ahead and we walked it and we measured it off from the stakes that were there as well. Could we show them the next? I think it's the next one. Yeah, and you can kind of see just the overview there. I mean, what you've got, though, okay, so this black line right here, oh, wow, I'm shaking. That, it's easier to sweat for me. This, oh, thanks. This black line is actually where the telephone pole lines are, and it's offset approximately 20 feet, except for right up there at the top. So what we did is we made sure that we hit all of our marks within that area. And that doesn't encroach on anybody's yard in the back. But the best part is that all of that's been used as a dumping ground, obviously, it'd be nice to clean it up. I mean, there's everything from garbage to concrete to, what was that? Appliances. Yeah, right now, and it is an eyesore. You come around that corner and it's really not nice. But what we're kind of thinking, thanks so much, is if you go to that next one. The next one is, all we're going to do is the front's going to be kind of a cottage look and be long, but the nice thing is you've got that bluff up there as well. So if anything, those back neighbors are only going to see the tips of the roof because that does drop down. And the nice thing, too, the other thing on this, can you go back to the main, let's see, so we can show kind of the elevation maybe, or I can show them that. Let's see if I can, of this, where this sits is very high. It's about 20 to 25 feet, and then it drops down. So this on this side's high. It drops down to the creek right here, and then it comes up, and it's about 20 feet lower. So, and there is no, it's not on any floodplain. It's, which is really nice as well. And we have the paperwork on that as well.
Okay.
So they're meeting all the setbacks. Have you been out there?
Well, according to the drawing, they'd show that. We've not reviewed it in great detail.
Well,
It's
no,
simply a
we're only
rezone
looking at
application.
rezone right now. So, I mean, so this is nice and all, so, but we're looking at, okay, all right.
This will have to come back as a subdivision plat. At that point, we'll do
Right, but if it
detailed
wasn't
verification that it's a
close.
buildable lot.
In
Okay.
concept, it appears to be
Yeah, I mean,
that she's accounted for those items.
okay.
No, so tell me why it's a subdivision plat, because if we, my understanding is, one, it's a contiguous parcel, and two, if we rezone it, in theory, they can build whatever their zone allows.
Right. Currently, it is a contiguous parcel. It's all part of the brewer's property, including their home. So this is all one piece of property currently.
Oh, I see. So it would have to get subdivided.
So it would have to
Got
be
it.
subdivided to create a
There you
second
go.
buildable lot.
Got it. Okay. Now, can I ask, is it time for questions?
Yes.
Where's my pointer? I got to get a pointer. I got one right here. Yep, it's a green one. So just so I can, I think we've seen, I forget your last names, the Joneses. Are you here or over here?
We're up.
So were you all the ones that we sadly said no to putting the house? Okay,
Right.
okay.
He knows my story a lot. I mean, they're like,
Yeah. Because I think I said that about this one. If you, okay. I'm just making sure I understand. Okay. Well, I mean, personally, it feels like you're shoehorning something in there, but at the same time, look, that question is not before us right now.
No.
The question is, does this make sense as a rezone? Well, all of this is R120.
Right.
Probably 40% of that property line surrounding it is abutting R120. So a lot of the traditional questions we ask with a rezone is, would it change the character of the neighborhood? In terms of lot sizing, is it going to be terribly different? I think the answers to all of those in my mind are in favor of rezoning it.
Right.
Andy or Lyle, if they wanted to subdivide in the future, would they need to rezone the existing A1 to R120 to have a matching zone to subdivide, or could you have that
No, the
subdivision
remaining
in two
lot,
zones?
the remaining portion could remain in A1. It consists of more than an acre still.
Okay.
Okay.
So is that common to have one parcel of property be zoned two different ways?
It's not common. It does occur on occasion. In this case, property was acquired over time, and so the zoning didn't necessarily go with the property acquisitions. As was mentioned, the bulk of this strip used to be Shepherd Lane.
Right.
Was actually owned by the sewer district. It was never a platted road. And when we realigned Shepherd Lane around, that became an isolated piece, and I believe the sewer district sold it to the brewers, if I recall, and they added it to their parcel. But we didn't rezone it because they didn't care at the time.
So it was added to an existing parcel as opposed to becoming its own parcel?
That's correct, yes.
Interesting.
So, as I say, I think there's a rezone question and then other questions later on. Hypothetically, if we said, yeah, sure, let's rezone it, it doesn't change the character, the density isn't of a concern, or whatever the rezone considerations we say, and then it comes before city staff, because essentially what they're doing would just come before you. Actually, I guess there would be the plat. But let's say hypothetically there's a plat and it comes before you and it just doesn't work. That's kind of their loss. Is that right?
Yes, they're left with R120 zoning there.
Or they would make something work, which is probably what they would do. Okay.
Yeah, part of our requirement in a subdivision plat is to verify that all the lots are buildable.
Yep. And, I mean, in my opinion, whether the lot's buildable or not is not really
That's
the
irrelevant.
question before us right now.
That's absolutely irrelevant.
Yep.
We're here for
I
a
wouldn't,
rezone right now.
I wouldn't say it's
Well,
absolutely
not
irrelevant.
irrelevant,
We're talking
but-
about shifting it from agricultural to residential. So it makes sense to think about whether it makes sense to have it be residential.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we're doing here, right?
Right.
That was why my question, if it really didn't work, then it's for not.
But if it really didn't work, then that means it's never going to be residential.
No, then you have a piece of property.
You could make an argument that if this was determined not to be buildable, probably the next best use for it to accomplish the goal of cleaning the area up would be to sell it to these adjacent property owners, in which case you'd want it to be R120 to match their lots anyway.
Oh, good point.
Right.
Now, whether that happens or not, I don't know, but it's just a thought.
And I think at least, so we received a letter that somebody wrote. I think everyone got it emailed.
Got it.
If I understood that letter correctly, and this is my, at first glance, I thought this is what was trying to happen, is this parcel owner was trying to do what they wanted to do that we said no about before. This thing is bright. Right? So that parcel owner was going to buy this and try to do what they wanted to do with a little more property. But that, if I understand it correctly, that's not what's before us, right? No. Okay. So the person who wrote us that letter would, in theory, as long as it didn't get shoehorned in like it was last time, then I would assume they're like, oh, my letter is based on a wrong assumption is kind of what it was.
That's kind of what I get.
They live in that wedge piece right next to that one.
In that one right there?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you live in this
Yeah,
neighborhood, too.
that's my neighborhood.
Well, so anyway.
Well, I don't have any.
And they expressed concerns about what's going to happen to the property below them, which was, to me, a question about we'd like to keep our house, we'd like to keep parcels around us undeveloped so we can enjoy it more, which is not really a...
Well, that's not their choice.
Andy,
That's not
what's the alignment of the West Davis corridor? Okay, so when West Davis corridor comes in here, if I had a crystal ball, I would say that this is not going to be A5
for a very long.
That's the sewer district property.
Okay, well,
It will stay.
it will stay A5. So
No,
they
like-
won't.
Foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so hold on a sec. So let's just talk about that for a second. This parcel, for example, right here, you're saying that will always stay A5? You were guessing?
That is currently owned by Central Davis Sewer District. That's where they do some of their land application
Got it.
solid disposal.
Okay, got
So
it.
until their treatment technique is required to be altered, we expect that will stay undeveloped and sewer district property.
Yeah, so for the foreseeable future.
Yes.
But at some point, there was a conversation had about Shepherd Lane as it went around here and said, for the foreseeable future, Shepherd Lane's going to be right here. Well, now Shepherd Lane's right here. I mean, it's inevitable. It's just how long is it going to take, I guess, is the question. Anyway, my point is this will change, whether it's in 10 years or 20 or 50. This is going to change, and this is going to get subsumed. The fact that this would be R120 is not going to be, in the long, grand scheme of things, that big of a deal, in my opinion.
Sure.
I'll move that we grant recommendation of rezone of 1.1 acres of property at 1915 South Shepherd Lane from A5 heavy agricultural to R120 single family residential for Kathy and Barry Brewer.
I'll second that.
Aye. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry.
You can go ahead. I'm still.
Aye.
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 Aye. Good job.
Good luck on the next step.
Yeah.
That's the tough one.
Okay. It was a good presentation, so thank you. Well, you can continue to stay. We're now going to call the public. Would you like to come up and say any more? No?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Just lips, man.
All right. Any
Welcome.
correspondence?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any correspondence?
Citizens reports, still our regular meeting.
Somebody's
schedule.
sunglasses are under there too.
So June 14th will be our next meeting. No special dates, just the commission. And so we'll watch for that. Unless there are other reports where it was kind of a small agenda and anticipating we'd be done early, but not to keep you all night. If there are items of discussion to be had, we can take a few minutes on that. One item was just a quick brief training. I kind of cut it into our actual consideration of the application. I think we've talked about it a little bit recently. But if you had any questions on it, these rezones we see often, but not every meeting. And as you experienced tonight, it's a bit of a different kind of palette compared to your normal administrative decisions. And so we've kind of watched some movies about that, how typically if we're looking at a conditional use or a subdivision, is somebody meeting the letter and the requirements of the ordinance? We're checking the boxes there to make sure they do that. But as a commission and in the consideration of a rezone, you get a whole different look at things. You do a lot of interpretation, a lot of personal opinion about does it not fit, does it work? Part of that ties into the general plan that was mentioned. Is it conducive of that language within the general plan? And of course, it is in fact just that, general. And so different minds can look at some of that in different ways and interpret it in a different manner when application to application. And kind of on that note, something that we've been looking at internally, I know the mayor's very interested in getting to this at some point, would be an update of that general plan. The most recent that's been approved was 2014. And Andy reminds me that predates me. I just got on actually right as it was getting its final approval, so really wasn't involved in much of the preparation. But it sounds like a lot of the legwork in preparation for that started in 2011. A lot of the public meetings, a lot of the input and crux of that. So in a lot of ways, it's been 7, almost 8 years since that kind of began. You'll probably recognize this even better than I. You get, as time goes on, we're getting different requests, we're getting more pressure for different types of development, different products, and we're seeing changes throughout the city. It doesn't mean we have to go with the flow with that, but probably just leads to conversation that maybe it's time to consider and just relook at those things and have that conversation again as to, what do we want our city to be? What is the vision for Kaysville in the future? To put that in a plan. And then, in theory, once you have the general plan down, we work on the zoning, as was considered tonight, which is the toolbox that implements that vision. So it sets the rules and regulations in the actual ordinance that hopefully will enact that. So, if you want to at least have that on your radar, if you've got ideas, concepts, things that you'd like to see put in there, procedurally, frankly, it's still a blank slate on exactly how we're going to go about the process and time frame even. But we just kind of feel it coming to a head that it's getting ready to start having that process looked at. I've got a 8-minute video from Luau, the land use authority, about general plans. If you feel like you want to watch it, it goes over it a little bit, and then if there are any questions or things to consider, we can deal with that. after the show. Otherwise, we'll convene probably. So.
Yeah.
You know, just one quick question. Josh had brought up West Davis corridor. Do we have a timetable for that development in Kaysville? Because I think that some of our master plan may change based on having that up and running and some of the access and whatnot. I'd hate to put a plan in place and suddenly have that fall into place and go, oh, that changes everything. So maybe from a date standpoint, we look at that as sort of something we can work around.
Yeah. West Davis corridor has an approved environmental document. Therefore, they have a preferred alignment established. The general concept of what that facility is going to look like is pretty well set now. We know where the interchanges will be. We know where the alignment will be. I believe they're telling us that 2019, 2020 is when they expect to start construction on it.
Okay.
So coming soon.
It is coming soon, and we have a pretty good understanding of what it will look like at this point.
And is it basically the part that you said and then 200 North? Is that the kind of the main places where it touches?
In Kaysville.
Well, that's what
Yeah, I don't have a map on the thing. I can pull it up.
But I mean,
It comes in and go west of the sewer plant, run along the big power lines that are along the west edge of town,
Right.
all the way through. They're proposing an interchange down here to south of the sewer plant and one at Second North.
They are doing one south, just south of it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
We
in
call it the
Farmington?
Mink Farm interchange, if you know where the Mink Farm is.
So that is Farmington?
It's Kaysville
It's in
City.
Oh, it is
Kaysville, but
Kaysville.
it's right on
So
the
there's going
border.
to be two in Kaysville.
Yeah,
Oh.
but it. We have
I'd
no
like to see that.
we have no homes west of the West Davis corridor, and we don't
Anywhere,
anticipate
in, at least in the Kaysville part or the whole?
in
In Kaysville.
Yeah.
So you go farther north, the lake pulls away, and
Right.
it goes more through the center of West Point, Syracuse,
Yeah.
some of those. But
Is that land west of the corridor something that could be developed at some point, even commercial, or is it
would be-
wetlands?
It's probably wetlands. and
That's what I'm assuming, but
the bulk of it is owned by either Utah Power and Light for their power line corridor. A lot of it is owned by Nature Conservancy. A little bit is actually owned by federal government. It's a long time been Kaysville City's plan that West Davis Road would be the boundary of our development. You get west of that, you're below the sewer plant, so you have to pump the sewer. You're getting into groundwater and even floodplain. So we've drawn that line and we've stuck to it, and I personally think it's working very well.
What's the right of way looking? I mean, they may not know this, but is it going to be separated like Legacy? Is it going to be?
It's going to be built to a freeway standard, initially 2 lanes in each direction. They're showing a 50-foot median, grass median, and then extremely large shoulders on each side with a trail paralleling it. We're still arguing on which side of the
I think they're going
highway
to.
the trail should be.
I think so. That's what I heard.
What side are we saying?
Are trucks allowed on it now?
We're not arguing with them, we're arguing among ourselves.
East side, east side, east side.
The east side creates better access, the west side creates better mobility and better view.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's,
So it depends what you're going on your ride for and how far you want to go.
Will there be any grade separations along the way? Either at interchanges or
The
otherwise?
2 interchanges and then one at Galbraith Lane. Is that the right one? Yeah, Galbraith. Because there's a hunter access that the state owns that has to be preserved. Wildlife Service something, so.
It's every shade.
We may get one additional pedestrian access if things work really good.
Do
That
you
was
know
shady,
if trucks will be allowed on that?
Pardon
I know trucks, semis, will they be allowed?
At this point, they haven't anticipated a restriction.
Okay, because Legacy had like a 10-year, didn't they?
Well, Legacy, yeah, that was part of a lawsuit settlement. That they wouldn't allow trucks, I think, for 10 years. That expires, I think, in the next year or so. At this point, they've said they don't anticipate prohibiting trucks on West
That's
Davis.
good. Okay.
All right, well, you want to roll the film there, roll tape.
While he's getting it up, if you're bored, I've got UDOT's got an interactive map of the highway. You can come peek at it on your way out.
There's the joke of the day.
That is a pretty funny joke. Yeah, that's nice.
Depends on what part of town you're in.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. All right.
Are you interested in creating a general plan? Are you completely not interested in making a general plan? But you know you have to, according to state law. Do you even know what a general plan is? General plans are awesome. Maybe you just don't know it yet. I'm going to tell you all about a general plan.
General plan? Did somebody say general plan? I'm General Howard Plan. Here at your service.
Okay. Thank you. Long before a building is built, there's a plan. A blueprint, if you will. I mean, you wouldn't start construction without one, right? Are you building a home for a family of 4 or a family of 6? Do you need 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, or 6? Now, as a planner, you wouldn't just stumble along with no plan for your city or town, right? We know we're going to grow. In fact, Utah is among the fastest growing states in the nation. So how are you going to plan for that growth? Will your city or town go to the north, to the south, the east, or west? Will it continue to spread out? And how far? Or will it increase in density? How will you handle public services, water, sewer, garbage collection, and transportation? If your city doubles in size, will all that traffic continue down existing streets? Or should you consider creating a transportation corridor around the city? And if so, will that corridor separate neighborhoods and create different environments within those neighborhoods, the way the interstate system used to do?
In fact, the great state of Utah says you must be prepared for future and present needs. And that requires a general plan.
Thank you so much. Look, the people driving by in these cars know exactly where they're intending to go. In the same way, a general plan tries to guide a community into a desired future some 15 to 20 years away. I mean, you wouldn't get in a car and drive somewhere without knowing where you're going to go, right? Why would you be any less careful when building a building or developing a city?
Listen up, soldiers. You need Ludlow. That's our commander-in-chief. You can make a battle plan with Ludlow. You can talk about land use, transportation, housing, agriculture, environment, public services. Let's take these one at a time. First, land use. You'll need your current land use map. Then you've got to think about how you use your land now and how you'll use your land in the future. Hear me? Roger that. Strategize for the future, troops.
Actually, he's right. Your community is going to need to address not only current transportation and traffic needs, but also future ones. Where should new roads go? How wide should they be? How can we serve our residents and businesses better? What are our transit needs? What do we want our streets to look like? How do we support a variety of street systems? You'll also be required to estimate the need for additional moderate income housing. The state requires an entire separate study to evaluate the local needs for moderate income housing. It's a good idea to examine housing quality, quantity, and the different types of housing you have. Look at locations in your community for things like higher density housing near transit, senior housing, and workforce housing. If you have a university, do you have enough student housing and homes for families? For the agricultural element of your general plan, you'll need to identify and consider each agriculture protection area.
Remember, it's state law. The community has to consider any agricultural land that has been designated as protection area.
That's right. Most communities will want to discuss the long-term status of agricultural lands.
Will they be developed or retained for future generations?
Correct. You may need to put an environmental element in your general plan. This includes an examination of wetlands, steep slopes, landslide areas, fault lines, high water table areas, vegetation-contaminated soils, creek protection,
aquifer recharge areas.
That's so right. It's all necessary to know for your community's future. For the public services and facilities element of your plan, you'll assess your community's need for sewer, culinary water, secondary water, and stormwater systems. Outline your community's storage and treatment needs and techniques to reduce the amount of stormwater.
One way to approach this is to use your population protections, which you can get from the state or your association of government.
Look at these projections and use them to base your needs for storage and treatment. And don't forget to assess the need for power, gas, broadband access, police, fire, and education services. You may have areas of your community that need to change, or even areas where you'd like to preserve the character of a neighborhood. If so, you're going to want to include a rehabilitation, redevelopment, and conservation element in your plan. We're talking plans and programs for historic preservation, or ways to redevelop the land, including housing, business, industrial, and public building sites. The economic element of your plan offers an assessment of your current status. What you're trying to do is demonstrate how your local economy is structured and performing. What needs to change? How can you plan both physically and financially to positively grow the community?
Cha-ching! And by the way, this effort to keep taxes lower in your community.
I was going to say that. Finally, you're going to want to look at your community as part of a greater region and see what trends are occurring there, especially regarding the regional transportation plan or demographic and economic changes that may influence the future. Now, how do you make all this happen? Well, the Planning Commission works on all these elements and holds many community meetings for input. Then they hold a public hearing and send a final recommendation to the city or county council. The council then gives their input and takes a vote on the plan. But don't forget the vision, or rather, visions. The Wasatch Choice for 2040 Blueprint suggests a regional vision for the Wasatch Front. It promotes transit and road connections to town centers. A regional transportation plan for high-capacity roads is coordinated with that big vision. Outside the Wasatch Front, each area creates its own vision. And eventually, all areas in Utah will have a defined vision as part of the statewide effort called Your Utah, Your Future. Well, it is your Utah and your future. It's everyone's future. And that's why a consensus-based community vision is also a critical part of this process. As all of the elements come together, you're creating a vision for the future under the guidelines of LUDMA, the Land Use Development Management Act, and your own zoning ordinances. The process helps define where the community needs to go and what the community wants to be. The vision you create in your general plan becomes a guiding statement that provides a standard for making future decisions about land use. I like to think of it as a practical vision for the future. What do you want your community to be? And how can you get there?
The recommendations for implementing any and all portions of the general plan elements are essential for the plan to be an effective document. This may be the most important part of the plan, the action plan troops, so don't forget. Carry on.
I think they will. Practical, implementable strategies for each of the elements you discuss in your general plan may be difficult to generate, but without them, your community won't have adequate direction to help it achieve its goals for the future. There are many more resources on this website to help you start your journey in creating your plan. So go, be awesome. Define your collective future with your general plan.
Did somebody say general plan?
So just one comment on that is he covers a vast variety of things that could be a portion of that. The state really only has 3 requirements that are mandatory: land use, transportation, and the moderate income housing. But it just kind of shows, I mean, there's any number of elements that you could just, as you see things that you'd like to address or talk about, sky's the limit really that we could look at within that general plan and help create a vision. So we'll keep you posted as we kind of fine tune how that's going to work out, but wanted to have that on your radar so you can begin thinking of ideas, and that's a big role of the Planning Commission towards planning the city.
So would you say, hey guys, we're going to start this process, and then have some prep time, and then how would the very, very basically generally the process be organized, or how would it work?
It can work in a number of ways, however you dictate. A fairly common way is to have a citizen committee or committees come in and start the review process, get recommendations from the public at large, assemble that together and have the Planning Commission review it and tell us which ones are worth pushing forward, which one isn't. That's a fairly typical process.
Who puts those citizen groups together? Do we, or is it something that staff does, or city
It would
council?
probably
Us?
Probably you,
Okay.
with help from the city council.
Sure.
Technically, the plan, or the general plan, is the planning commission's responsibility in the planning commission's document.
Right.
But it does have to be approved by the city council.
Right. So this is definitely something that's on the horizon.
I think
It's getting closer.
Yeah, it feels like it's culminating and getting ready for it. So in some form or fashion, you gather as much input as you can and sort it and make a recommendation. We do have to have a public hearing before that recommendation can be made. And so that's, again, a number of ways to get to that point, but that's one of the required elements.
So the
as you're
public
very familiar
hearing
with.
would be just our plan to start going forward?
Yeah, before you can recommend it to the city council, you have to hold a public hearing.
Oh, before we recommend
That's
it?
important.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was interesting. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, take a motion to adjourn.
Motion that we adjourn.
Thanks, Tom.